move on, right? Anne's going to tell us something. Anne, tell us what you just said, right? About chickens and something. Because, right, go on, tell
Oh,
us.
I'm trying to remember the name of it. There's an
What?
author.
Yeah,
Uh, Someone does illustrations in the like hardback books, and you
yeah,
find them in farm shops and things like that.
yeah.
Uh, actually they're quite high class.
Right, okay, right. So
And
what was that going
the illustrate it's an illustrator of like horses and farms and chickens and things, and I just imagine him drawing you in the shower with the chickens and the turkeys and the everything flying about. Yeah.
I gotta be honest with you, right? Goff is just about to leave these classes because he feels so violently sick over what you've just said.
I want to know
Um,
what Goat was doing in the shower with you. That's
yeah, but what I want to know, Goff, right? What I really want to know, right, is how Anne has just imagined that entire scene and being that
wow.
she's
I'm not surprised coming from Bridgend. That's what they're obsessed with that sort of thing there.
I just know what you like, and I know, and I'm an artist, so I can see it.
do you know what? Sometimes I don't have words for things that people say, right? And on this occasion, I tell you what, I can't wait to be on set tomorrow and tell people about this conversation. They're gonna love it. Flippin' heck. Right, okay, right, okay, Anne, we're gonna start off with you. Is there any news from you this week?
Well, the only thing I saw was something this morning. There was a nice site in Northern Ireland that seems and it's there, you can accessible.
Hang
And
on a minute, and just get this right. There's a site in Northern Ireland.
yeah,
Um,
on the probably on the Ards Peninsula.
yeah,
And it's I haven't been able to share it, but it's a site where it clearly shows, it's gone from Neolithic, up to Iron Age, and all the different methods of dealing with bodies. It's a cairn, but
yeah.
it's all been excavated and everything in 1956. So I'll find more information about that. But I thought it
On
was
does that happen to be Rathgyle?
no, it's
No, because that's what we're doing today.
no, it's Saint Quentin's Bay, which is yeah, northern. It's on the coast. It's sort of on Stratford Loch,
Right, okay.
or on the coast. So it's very, it's near where St. Patrick, you know, is buried.
All right, okay, cool,
St.
cool,
Patrick. There's a
cool.
lot of holy places around there.
Top of the world here, sir.
Yeah,
Right, okay. Have you done your bit now, Anne?
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I'm glad, Anne. Me and Richard have we've glazed over now. Right. When I was waiting for my car to be sorted one day that I was parked up at Landau, right? I went in a local field and I found this wonderful, weird little object, right? And it's made of flint, right?
Hmm.
And it's got a flint exterior, right? But it's worked on this end and it's worked on this end, right? And it looks like it's a tiny, I think it's a Mesolithic tool. And it
Mm.
happened, and basically I was because I'm currently looking at my reports now and publishing stuff. I just thought that would be a useful object, and seeing as that um, the peak performance is now closed in Landau, and I found this because I was waiting for my car to be looked at. We'll be reporting on this in the next magazine. So
Yeah.
That's one for you, Goff.
Yeah.
So right, okay. Anything from you, Goff, today?
Oh, I haven't got any archaeological news. I haven't seen or read anything either. So sorry, no.
It, it's been a bit slow, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And somebody said this will be interesting. And there's somebody called Anna and West Riley. Yeah, it certainly has. And I don't know if you guys saw the explanation of me being in a shower, being painted and surrounded by chickens. This is something that Margaret just missed and Judith just missed. Um, but I'm sure that one day, Judith, Judith, hang on a minute, who's just left?
Judith.
No,
I,
I'm
I,
here.
I wasn't going to get graphic. What I was going to say, Judith, right? Anne can explain that fantasy that she had earlier
Oh
online.
no, I'm not. I'm trying to find. I love Margaret. Have you ever been in a farm shop and or these places that they got sell all this fancy jams and things, and but they also got books, and there's this one illustrator that does like horses and cartoony people.
Come on, just say yes, Judith, because we've got to crack on.
Yes.
Anyway, that I could just imagine. He said he was in the shower yesterday, out in the field
Today.
with no clothes on, and hello, Pat,
Oh.
and the chicken and the chickens and the sheep and the turkey tried to catch hold of something. Look, that's going now. And I said I could just imagine it, like an illustration in one of those books, of Carl in the
It's an image
shower.
I'd rather not try and imagine.
Can I just mention something to you, Anne? Does Richard ever have these fantasies? No. Right. Okay then. Goff has just stormed off. Right, anything from you, Pat?
No, I just left my cup of coffee somewhere else, so I'll be right back.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, this is going so bloody well today. I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
Right, anything. Judith.
No, I'm sorry. I've only just got in and I'm looking for something to eat.
Yeah,
All right. You get something to eat then.
I
You
left
need to be
myself
looking-
something out, but my husband ate it.
you need to be looking for the off button, love. Anything from you, Margaret?
That's Margaret. Margaret's from.
No, that's not Margaret. That's Judith. Margaret's next.
Am I the only one from our side?
Well, so
Margaret
far.
from-
Oh, and hang on. And somebody's just us online. They've said Anna. They said, "Oh, I'm formerly Reese." They've had a sex change. This is so great, and quite possibly intersex. But that's besides the point. And context. We's here to enjoy this Scottish and Irish archaeology lecture. If we ever get around to bloody doing it, yeah, you are the only one from Anne's side, and I really, yeah, anything from you, Margaret?
Well, I'm joining the National Trust as a volunteer.
Oh yeah, we want to, yeah.
Well, I went along to the meeting today, and it's the archaeology group.
Oh,
Yeah.
First of all, I've got to become a volunteer, which means a lot of paperwork, apparently, to become a volunteer. Then I've got to do various health and safety things. There's quite a palaver before I can actually be trained to do anything. But what we do is we go around, it's Sizer Castle, which is 3 miles from here. And it's locating all the sites and checking on the condition of each site. And there are hundreds of them, apparently.
Yeah, and I got to be honest with you. Best of luck, because I'm actually a woodland trust warden, right? And Michelle went to one of our woodlands today, and people are dumped on the pathways, rubbish bins full of rubbish. They had dumped loads of stuff down the bank. There was human, stuff in a plastic carrier bag with toilet paper, and we're just thinking, why?
That is
That's the type of stuff.
Wales.
That's the type of stuff that you've got to deal with, Margaret.
Well, I don't know about that because people are not really allowed to roam around willy-nilly.
Yeah, they're not allowed to
Wales,
roam around these woods like this either. Right, anyway, thank you for that, Margaret. Right,
Okay.
Anne, it's got really bizarre now. And Anne, number one, Anne, you are not repeating for the third time what you said earlier on because Goff is going to storm off. Other Anne.
Who's Anne?
Oh,
Jennifer Han.
no, the other Anne's not said anything. That's fine, Richard. We've got oh, Henry, anything from you, Henry? No?
Well, welcome from the Emerald Isle.
What, you're in France, are you? Well done, that's great. Get
Oh,
a
you're
bloody
there,
medal.
are you?
Ah,
Why is
Catherine
Uncle
Wilkinson.
Christine on there?
Where are
Oh,
you
my-
in the Emerald Isle?
I've come back. I've been up in Connemara, Donegal, Kerry,
Wexford, Cork.
Wexford, Athlone.
Oh, Athlone.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. Don't worry about it, Henry. Anything else, love?
Yeah,
Oh, have you got my
yes,
Hello,
colour?
Andy.
You.
Hi.
yeah, there's a Swedish university doing a research project on walrus ivory tusks into Viking trade with indigenous North American
Where?
tribes
Where?
What?
in Sweden.
Oh,
Right,
They're
and this is to do.
checking the DNA, and they've discovered that the DNA of these tusks are coming from the high Arctic in North America.
Nice.
oh.
And they believe that they've potentially got a trade route going hundreds of years before good old Christopher Columbus turned up and caused mayhem.
Oh, no, that's not possible. Right.
Oh, you know what I'm going to say, don't you?
Yeah, it's to do with King Arthur. No, shut up.
It is.
Right,
I'm
okay
going
then.
to shut up now.
Yeah, and finally, right, thanks for that, Henry. We've got to crack on because we'll be all you're all bloody night, right? Including people with intersex marriage problems, right, Andy?
No news. Sorry.
No, I know it's not an intersex marriage problem with you, Andy. It's somebody else. Right. Okay. Right. All right. I've had a brilliant, really nice week. I'm not allowed to talk about it. I've signed a contract, but you'll know about it in the future. Right. So, So we're going to have what I've decided today is we're going to look at a subject that I've been spinning out with the past few weeks. Irish Hillforts. Right. And then I just thought, right, let's just spit that out there. And we're going to do more of a chronological thing with that. And then I thought, right, what I'm going to do, we're going to have a little bit of a view with Scottish Hillforts, right? Because we've done English ones, we've done a couple of Welsh ones, and I just wanted to. Then I want us to flow back to Scotland, and then next week, because we've got people missing on Tuesday, because obviously I wasn't able to do Tuesday because of where I was on Tuesday, and I can't even tell you where I was either. But Andy knows. Andy, not allowed to say anything. And right, we're going to get into it. So that's where we are. And Richard, look out for anybody else. We're going to crack on and we're going to share. And
Oh, there's Anne.
Anne's there.
Yeah.
I've asked
Anne
Anne, and she don't want to. Anne don't want to say anything.
Well, I couldn't understand what I was doing. I couldn't say anything. It was all peculiar. And I've been fiddling about trying to get myself on.
Same here.
Anyway, I'm here at last.
Well, I'm glad you are. We've got a few people online. There's somebody online that called Anna, who's decided that they've changed their sexuality. There's somebody called Puck, somebody called Meg, and the Dodgy Git. Right, so that's fine. That's good. They've joined us as well. Right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna look at the site of Rathgal in Ireland, which I completely pronounced wrong. And if Henry keeps interrupting, which he probably will, as I pronounce everything wrong tonight, you are very welcome to correct me, Henry.
Right,
once.
Brian Baror is the other one.
Oh, look, all right, okay, right. I know you look at my TikTok and I can't pronounce anything, right? And the guy, right, got Henry, right?
He had a hill fort as well.
Henry, look, I'm talking a minute. I'm going to lead you in.
I'm
Right?
going to have to go and get my hearing aid.
Oh, I
How
don't
do you
care.
spell it, this site? How do you spell it?
No, no, we're not doing that a minute, right? I've been doing a whole series online to do with King Arthur. I do a video every single day. I wasn't able to do one this week, but I've done more or less every single day for the past month. And we'll be doing that with King Arthur, right? And one of the things I'll be doing with King Arthur, if Judith completely believes this, that King Arthur actually comes from Ireland, right? And winding her up now. And basically the name of the person that may have been the person that was the Irish King Arthur was called
Brian.
Yeah, I can say Brian, but what's the surname?
Thoreau.
Thank you. And what else were you going to say?
He's got his own Hillfort.
Right, thank you. That worked fine eventually. I'm happy with that. Right, okay, and we are going to be looking at vitrified. We're going to, when I've mentioned vitrified Hillforts in Scotland before, we're going to be mentioning that as well. So we got a few things to go through, and again, apologies that we're not doing the Scatnest thing, because I wanted everybody in on that. So obviously Tuesday next week, that's when we'll do the last bit, but we won't do any Hillfort stuff next week. So I thought I'd say that. So I got my notes in front of me and a few things to look at. And when we've been talking about Hillforts, I've been a bit blasé with saying and stating that Hillforts themselves, in the context of British archaeology, and when we say British archaeology, before 1920, when Ireland is actually part of Britain, to wind Henry up. So the British archaeology bit, the chronology, I haven't really stressed that the chronology of Hillforts is really important. In fact, when we think about some Hillforts, particularly in Ireland and Scotland, not so much in England and not so much in the southern part of Cymru, Wales, most of these Hillforts have a history that runs through all the way from the Neolithic period all the way up to the basically the modern day and age, in the past 100 years or so. And then obviously the word Hillfort is a bit of an anathema, in the sense that it's not really descriptive in that most of these places are neither forts, and some of them are neither on hills, but they're definitely areas that could be said to be defended, but not in the broadest sense of the word fort. But for the sake of argument today, I'm going to cut the word bank and ditched enclosure, which this is clearly one, but for flowing, let's just use the word Hillfort in brackets, right? Now, this site is Rathgal, Hillfort, Wicklow, and Wicklow is is a southern county of modern day Southern Ireland, right? Now, the one thing I need to say is that in Ireland, there are quite a number of Hillforts, but when you compare the number of Hillforts in Ireland, which is at this point an unknown quantity because they're basically reused and in different places, you've got 1,000 Hillforts in Scotland, where you've got far less in Ireland. Now, and the problem is interpreting what a Hillfort is to go in the category of being a Hillfort, right? When is a Hillfort, and so on. So Hillforts are some of the best known and certainly the largest monuments of, as we know, the later prehistoric across Britain and the Iron Age, when we think about that context, in Ireland, which is a continuous Iron Age experience that runs directly into, as Henry mentioned earlier on, or Anne did, or Anne mentioned it. Oh, I think, but yeah, Henry and Anne mentioned it, about the experience of the Vikings in Ireland and so on. So when we use those key words trying to interpret the Irish sense of what these Hillforts were, and there's quite a number of them, nearly 90 there, and obviously visible Hillforts, there's a lot more than that in Ireland, right? And you can see that in the southern part there's quite a few, right? the Irish interpretation of what a hill fort is rather different from, say, the interpretation we'd get in Cymru, Wales, or the interpretation which we'd get from England and Scotland. The Scots have a different drum to bang as well. So they were centres, maybe looking at this, they were centres of ceremonial assembly, maybe. But the main thing is, with all the context of hill forts across Britain, they were centres of centres stroke expressions of power in the wider landscape. So when we say the wider landscape, they're expressions within the landscape rather than a monument there in front of you. These are spread eagled expressions of prehistoric sense of who they were, identity. That's a word that has been hijacked these days. So their immense size testifies to the significance these central places held in words such as economic, political, and ideological terms of the prehistoric world from the late part of the Bronze Age in the 800s, 900s, 700s, late Bronze Age into the Irish Iron Age. And obviously we've got a bit of a toss-up between when the Iron Age began in Ireland, whether it was 800 years before Christ or 700 years before Christ. We're not really interested in dates. We're interested in the fact that these spread the ages. It spread out eagled legs throughout the ages, right? Hill forts can be anywhere in Ireland. They can be on the edge of a cliff, right? They might be sort of in a plainal type landscape like this. They might be on a summit, or they might be on a ridge, or they might be spread eagle between hills. But wherever they are to be found, whether they're low-lying or up there on promontories or wherever, remember the word hill fort, as I said at the beginning, it doesn't necessarily mean to they're on a hill, doesn't necessarily mean to say that the expression of fort, but it's a categorized genre, it's a categorized bent that we use in archaeology. They are defined by large earthen banks, and I'm keeping this one on you because look at that as you get closer. Now, the one thing that we can say, large earthen banks, and I'm smack bang on top of it, you've got these walls, right? And this example has been excavated. It looks very different. It looks very different because, in fact, the external wall is actually a lot wider, right? And what I need to do is go on, do. The external wall is a lot wider just because you can see the stones there. It looks pretty thin, right? But these walls themselves extend all the way there. That's the stone bank, right? So when you see the other aerial photographs, you can see the walls are really spread out. These are actually low-lying walls, but they're really, really thick. The low-lying archaeology, low-lying today, but they weren't massively tall either, and they didn't really need to be. In some cases that they are, right? But again, not getting too much. And this is circles within circles, Harry Nielsen's song. So what we have, so they've got these earthen banks with stone walls on top, but some are just earthen banks, some are just stone walls. Well, what we saw last week, right? That we've got just stone examples, right? So when we're thinking about expressions of understanding these sites, and we're trying to hang on. No, we're trying to move and understand what's going on, right? You can see that there we go. That's our example that we hang on, move, stay. This is our example that we used last week, and here we go. Right, how do you pronounce that, Henry? Mine is Dun and Gassa.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
You bloody coward!
Yeah, because I can't pronounce it. I know.
No, I actually, when we did actually think about this last week, that this is on the Aran Islands, and then we had the question: the Aran Islands, the Aran Island in Scotland? No, the Aran Islands off the Irish west coast, right? So, and it's those little bloody things that are sticking out there, right? So there they are, the Aran Islands. So the point is that you've got loads of expressions of what these are, right? And the word, here we go. Now this is I'll kind of give you another little bit of a lesson, right? In Ireland, a ditch is a fosse, Fosse. Otherwise, a ditch, right? So as me and when I went with Pat to Scotland, the word, for example, dike, it could mean a ditch rather than a bank. So all these words are sort of really strangely interchangeable, right? A fosse in England is a bank rather than a ditch. So it's the Irish. They are usually circular or oval in shape rather than examples that we see, for example, at Maiden Castle. Although many follow the contours of the hills, they are located on, or they might just take up hills or hillocks within this type of landscape, right? Similar forts, usually made of stone, are located on cliff edges. There we go. The dun. Dun is particularly used to describe a fortified location. That's the word that we usually get from Ireland. Now, the word dun in Scotland has a similar meaning. You've got duns in Scotland, which are basically small sort of circular enclosed walled areas, which in Ireland are bigger enclosed walled areas. So again, we did one of the things that is relatively misleading in archaeology is the setting in the landscape today. Oh, yes. Hang on a minute. I just want to hang on. Right. Just want to think. Yeah. One thing that I've been rather talking to myself recently about, right? As I do with the sheep. Well, I'm not talking to myself with the sheep, right? I where I am in West Wales, I've got a brilliant view. And when we were sold what we've got with a brilliant view, it said it's got a beautiful view, right? So you stand in one point, right? And you can basically see you can see from that one point about 250 degrees across that bit of the landscape. And that side, obviously, you don't get the full thing, but you get this beautiful view, right? Anyway, so then where I am, there's a bit of archaeology, and you can think, right, okay, they had a beautiful view, right? But then I've been driving to work, and I've been thinking, right, where I'm driving through is trees, right, and it's going high up, and I can't see anything, right? So, I'm on the top of a hill, and I'm driving along, and there's loads of trees in the valley, and you're thinking, right, okay, take that to where I live, and you're starting to think, well, there's no real advantage living on a hill in prehistory because you can't see anything anyway because it's surrounded in trees. So then when people say, oh, they put these things here because they had a view around the landscape, it's absolute nonsense. So that's one thing that you can take out the history book straight away. It just doesn't work at all. It just really, really doesn't work at all. And when you think about this map here, these examples themselves, the dots, when it's talking about Hillforts, it's talking about sites that are predominantly occupied. Nearly the 90 examples here. They're predominantly occupied for those long lengths of periods. So there'll be other examples added to this map, ones that were used in the Bronze Age, maybe ones that just used in the Iron Age. But this map shows sites in Ireland that were used over a very, very long period of time. And that long period of time going all the way back to the Neolithic. So we're talking about 4,000 years before Christ, so 6,000 years ago. So this is when lots of these sites' origins occurred. And then when you think about it, okay, so when people are living here at the birth of Christ, right, these sites have been occupied for 4,000 years, right? And the reasons why they're being used for 4,000 years as I said last night, last week, right? The point I made was that if people are living at a spot like Scatness, like we did last week, people are looking at living at a spot, and the rooms that they're in are really sort of dark, and you're thinking, well, they're living in that sort of, they're using that building for like 300, 400, 500 years, so it must have been advantageous. They're not abandoning those places, right? There must have been something really, really powerful with these places, powerful aspects that we don't really understand today, right? And the point is then, right? There's no house on there today. Why is there no house on there today? What has changed what has changed in the past 150 years that people no longer live here, right? And that's a question. People have lived at this site for 6,000 years. So why are they not living here now, right? And that is a very interesting question. That is more interesting than me saying, oh, they lived here because they had brilliant views over the landscape, because they didn't, right? They just didn't. It's not possible. If you surround the landscape with trees, they can't see jack, right? So there's another reason why they're here, right? And oh, you could talk about oh yeah, but it was predominantly agricultural landscape. No, not really. You go to Ireland, and different aspects of Ireland, it's a landscape that has altered very much, considerably over the last 200 years. So there was something really beneficial 200 years ago with this type of landscape. So most hill forts themselves, leading from the Neolithic period into the Bronze Age, running into the Bronze Age, all the way through to the Iron Age, and this constant reuse, reoccupation, reconstruction, rebuild into the medieval period, people living here in medieval period, people living in a post-medieval period. Yeah, this is the thing. This is the dynamic of this beautiful, rich landscape that unfolds the broadcasting of things that we don't really understand. And again, when you're thinking about our site here at Dongagasha, you're thinking about, again, Hillfort. Okay, it's not on a hill. It's round. Is it really a hill? Is it really a fort? So hence why Hillfort. We're just chucking it in there as a word to help us understand. Otherwise, we'll call them thingies, which would not be helpful at all. So they're in a way, they're enclosing bits of the landscape. So you could say that that's an enclosure. This is an enclosure. They're relatively enclosing bits of the landscape, but they've got a relationship with the earlier landscape. That's the point. They've got this living, breathing relationship with the early landscape. And when you think about this early landscape, we go all the way back to a place known as Rath Corran. And the Rath Corran, there's a hill fort, and you can see actually the stone wall of the hill fort behind. Now again, the relationship of people's past into the modern, and that sort of broadcasting. And so this again is actually, again, think about that, right? That just calm down and just sort of take a deep breath, Carl. Okay, so this is one of the things. This is really unusual that our prehistory people have got a huge respect for their past. In fact, there's stone there from Neolithic passage tombs that they could have used for building. They could have used to build the wall, and they chose not to use the stone to enhance their age, right? Which we do today. For example, I wrote a piece for my local column in the newspaper, and I finally got around to it, Richard, writing a little thing for my column in the newspaper for Bigless Bridge down the other side of Barry, on the common which leads to Innisparis, and I wrote about that, and I just basically said, right, they demolished this medieval building in the 1960s. They just flattened it. They just kicked it down, right? Now, But in the past, they didn't kick these things down. They respected what was going on before, right? And this is something that we don't understand. And it's interesting that let's bring in Margaret a minute. She said that she's training to be a volunteer for the National Trust, which is I completely think is a wonderful idea. We should all be doing it, right? Because the National Trust need more volunteers, and so do lots of these other organisations, right? And is Margaret's care for the historical environment, is her love for the historical environment, wishing it to uphold the past, the same as what these people were doing, right? And I would argue it's not, because Margaret's coming at it from a partisan point of view. She's coming at it from somebody who's got a house somewhere else, and she doesn't need to do this, but she's doing it because she wants to do her bit, right? But these people did their bit by living within the archaeology and history. That is the difference that I've mentioned. So again, what they're doing, they're enclosing areas that existing people of their ancestral ilk had once occupied. And again, thinking about these types of areas, when we're thinking about sometimes on raised areas where you've got these tombs, when it was warmer climate in Ireland, and when you had a warmer climate in Ireland, lots of these places were used and loved and respected because the environment was warmer in Ireland. There weren't the numbers of peat bogs that you've got in Ireland today. And lots more people lived in the upland areas, but they also buried their loved ones in upland areas. Again, later on, things changed, and the wider relationship with the landscape changed. However, the wider relationship with the landscape changed, but their connection with the past didn't. Now there's two different things there. When our relationship with the landscape changes, we have a habit of demolishing it and destroying everything before. Their relationship remains extant and revering their previous landscape. Now, this is not new in Ireland. The Irish don't have the license to argue that those are the only ones that cared about their prehistory. Most of our Hillfort sites in Britain have Bronze Age monuments associated with them. And what we basically saw, go back to Maiden Castle. There's bits of the early enclosed causewayed enclosure in the middle of Maiden Castle, right, which predates Maiden Castle by thousands of years. And then you've got this bank barrow that goes all the way through the middle of it, 600 meters, and there's earth, and they haven't demolished it, right? We got down in Barry by me, there's a hill fort, and you've got a bulwarks, and you've got a Bronze Age barrow smack bang in the banks and ditches, and they left it there. They haven't dug into the barrow; they left it there. So there is an enamored connection with their past, which is far distant than we can ever encourage our minds to understand. On one thing I would say, right, and this is a really good point to mention, my petition, which was read out in the Assembly government in Cardiff, to try to give more protection for trees, and more about that in the holistic pillar in the future. There's been a petition read in Parliament, the Westminster Parliament, to do a similar thing, to preserve an ancient tree and other ancient trees in England as well. So this is the type of thing that we're doing now, that relationship which they did in the past readily. And when you think about these stones again, these are easily, readily bits of that could be used, very similar to in Wicklow, where you've got a cairn associated with the summit, and you've got the rest around this. You've got a hill fort. So these sites were part of the wider phenomenon of settlement, land enclosures and upland areas, monumental construction throughout the living, breathing world of Ireland. And the living, breathing world of Ireland is, you could say, a lot more for Ireland, when in fact not enough is said about Ireland. Ireland is a bit like York, right? Where you've got York, you've got bits of history on top of history, and you've got history there, and that's left there, and you've still got this, and everybody's happy, and the history living amongst itself, and everything's fine, which you don't see in lots of other places of Britain. You see that a lot in Ireland. So when we see this type of dynamic, back to this, when we think about this dynamic of these Hillforts really starting to grow, and sort of construction sitting within the ritual monuments, and these ritual monuments become part of what they're creating, either smack bang in the middle, or by the way, we've got a cairn here. Oh, we'll chuck it in the defences. It's there. It can be part of the defences. Why do we demolish the cairn? Well, we'll just leave it there. It's a bit bigger. We'll just make the wall a bit bigger. We don't need to destroy it. Leave it there. It's fine. That's what the Irish did. And I think this is really, really interesting. This is really, really interesting. Right, and then we go back to our friend here, Rathgal, and we think about they're now using the ritual and ceremonial landscape, and a landscape that was very much related to the ancestors, and now the ancestors are living, breathing within an enclosed area that becomes the banks, the Hillfort, the fosses and the ditches around it. It all comes into one. It's the design of the past that flows into the current future, which is the prehistoric future, from the Neolithic all the way through. And this, I think this is the utopian archaeological world. If only archaeologists existed in the prehistoric period, it would be wonderful. But then again, they may have actually. Talking to myself on that one, maybe that's a really, really good point. Maybe these people were living and breathing antiquarians that revered what had gone before. And actually, when you do think about these monuments, when you excavate them, you usually find bones in them. Bones of the original Neolithic people that were buried there within the prehistoric landscape. And you're thinking, this is even deeper than Native American landscapes, where you basically say, right, the Native American landscape, we're told that Native American landscape is revered within the landscape, and that it's and then when other people want to destroy that Native American landscape, right, it's the most abhorrent thing ever. But there's a difference between the Native American landscape and this sort of landscape that we're talking about in Britain, because whereas the Native American burial landscape, the ceremonial landscape was sort of kept separate within the landscape, this landscape is kept within the landscape that is an evolving prehistoric world, and that is the difference. This is the design of the difference as life moves into the future. So again, this sort of, I think, underestimating the connection with the past within these sites is something that I needed to address tonight. While the Neolithic is often presented as some kind of peaceful utopia, there is much evidence of things being slightly different in Ireland as well. This is one thing that we didn't do with Ireland. It may have been that things were slightly different in Ireland as opposed to mainland Britain. Was there a little bit more tension? Well, Ireland's a smaller island than, mainland Britain, right? There may have been more tensions. There may have been tensions. But when again, we think about this landscape developing, and we're thinking about, this landscape developing, and, how these, they weren't always banked and ditch things initially. The bank and ditch sites were the things that these were developing. But the point is, when we think about this, all of these sites evolved. All of these sites evolved over this 6,000 years of predestined movement of time, like a clock. When you go from 1 to 2, 3, 4, and you go all the way to, if it's a 24-hour clock, that is, you go all the way to the 23rd hour, and suddenly everything stops. right? Because we're into the modern age where things have changed. And it's interesting that we see in Ireland that things have only changed in more recent years, and that is not to paint. That is in no way to mean Ireland and the Irish people. It's to say that they saw their landscapes being useful for that period of time when we could not see our landscapes being useful over that period of time. Who are the ones that are backwards? And it's not the Irish. My God, if you let the Irish just keep going through history, what more wonders could have happened if the Normans hadn't got there? Anyway, so while we've got this, we see this, and we see a characterized broadcast within this Hillfort utopia, and the part of their function would have been the protection of the life and property, but also the protection of what had gone before. And that is an interesting point. Were they protecting what had gone before? Because all of this is in the same locations. Maybe they didn't have a choice that this was all in the same locations, but they kept what was there in the same location, right? And this is what we're talking about now. So again, these bits of history, and there we go. The next slide there, Rath Corran. And these being in locations to use and rectify the earlier world, ramparted Hillforts, and we see this, and we see not a change, but a functional flow of aspired ideas, of understanding of who these people were and are within the current moment, within prehistory. And and again, what's usually happening is that even though I'm painting a picture of use, the uses are undoubtedly changed uses. Where 1 minute you've got an agricultural landscape, you've got burial landscape, you've got habitational landscape, you've got these walls, but it's again within the same adaptation. And whether this is a change in political thing, or whether it's a social economic thing, where obviously we got things changing, crops have changed, and also environmental changes, environmental circumstances change what's going on in Ireland. So as we've gone from the Neolithic period, which is a warmer period, as we're now going into we're now moving then into the Bronze Age, where things get wetter and colder, and the upland areas are places that are not brilliantly good for arable farming. They're good for pasture for livestock. But again, this sense of what's there within the ceremonial, maybe the burial landscape, the functional landscape. This is a functional landscape. That's key. Whatever it is, it's functional. It means something to them throughout the prehistory. So in other words, what you could gently say is that let's be very brave, Karl. Let's be very brave. There is no such thing as the Neolithic, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age in Ireland. It's all one thing, right? Because it all flows, right? There's no border between. It all flows, and actually, it keeps flowing. It keeps flowing into the early medieval period. It flows into the medieval period, and suddenly, bang! It stops. So there is an end, and somewhere there's a beginning, right? But there is an end, right? It's you could call it the occupational phase of Ireland, really. But anyway, that's me sort of jesting with my own self. So obviously this wider part of pastoral farming, which a word that we never use, which is transhumance, which is animals moving around and part of being a landscape. So the animals are part of this landscape. They're all. This is one thing that we don't talk about. The sheep, the sense of being part of this landscape, the movement within a landscape, and can you imagine this top of this hill, right? The rest of the landscape is full of trees, so you're not going to be able to see anything. and the people and they're grazing. Well, and you know, you got the animals there, right? So the animals are actually part of this landscape, and the movement of animals and the grazing of animals, and fixing within that connection. So the animals are equally part of this experience as the humans are part of the experience. And you just think about this, you just think gently, you know, the animals are grazing within the Carn and this Neolithic landscape. They're on the tops of these hills. And where does this come into it? You know, it's just thinking, right, okay. So again, that the point to be made with me saying, where does this come into this? Off on our Aaron, we're sort of thinking, well, okay, where this comes into it, it is based around the equation that not everything in Ireland is anywhere near as black and white. There are lots of reasons, purposes for why people are doing things in Ireland, right? Again, there's never a benchmark for we woke up one day and we're all farmers, or we woke up one day and we decided not to be farmers. We decided to be something else. So there's lots of different things going in different areas, and obviously broadcasting what this is all about. So back to Rathgal, and what we do is we have a little look at the Rathgal excavation report. It's only little, short, I think, short by most terms when we do it. And so classical Hillforts, the classical period, the Hillforts, and it could be said, that things are changing in Ireland. You know, things they're building these things because things have changed, but they haven't changed that much because they're living in the same areas. And when we've got this, when we've got these circular type sites, when we've got these circular type enclosures, starting to look at about 600 years before Christ, you're starting to talk about there's a lot of population growth. So there's environmental, there's population pressures, there's population changes with Ireland. So when we use the word environmental change, and we talk about temperatures, we should maybe be thinking about population as well. We should just be thinking how population is a factor that creates these enclosed areas. But then again, when you think about these enclosed areas, you start to think, well, if you're enclosing areas, you are making a statement, but then the statement's always been there. So statement as opposed to what has always been there. There's always been something going on here for many thousands of years, and then you enclose it, you make it more enclosed. So this goes back to that age question that we had a conversation about a month ago with Judith, and they say, why do you have a gate and why do you have a wall around your well, why do you have a fence around your garden, and why, you know, what's all that about? Is it defensive? No, you know, it's to enclose something, right? We like to feel that we're enclosing things, and then as opposed to that, which is rather interesting as well. Then opposed to that, there was a period in medieval Britain that things weren't enclosed. And you're thinking, because in the 1830s, and actually before that as well, we are across Britain, we have the Enclosure Acts, and we're thinking, if things are being enclosed, they weren't enclosed before, but then they were enclosed before that, and then they weren't enclosed. Right, so it's more than just being possessional over the landscape. You'd surely think that the medieval people were very possessional over the landscape, but who actually possessed the land? Because in the medieval period, the people who possessed the land were the great landlords. So you didn't need to have walls and things around everything if everything belonged to the landlord. So you've got all these different things that we try to think of, but it's trying to put the sense of the context, trying to put the meaning into what we're seeing within the landscape. One thing a few years back, I was oh God, I was quite young. I think I wrote a letter to Cadw about something to do with an archaeological excavation, and Cadw come back. They said, very patronising. Look, young boy, right? At Cadw now, we don't think about individual bits of archaeology. We think about the archaeology within a landscape. To be honest with you, archaeology has always been within the landscape. Making things individual is an archaeological concept. So when we think about these hill forts coming in to react to the population of Ireland, as the population of Ireland is growing, this is a very keen point. There's a very keen issue. This is actually in County Wicklow, and to actually get an idea where we are, do you know what? I put the map at the end, right? So when we're talking about Wicklow, there's Wicklow there. When we talk about Wexford, we've mentioned Wexford, Clare, and obviously lots of these counties that we can come across. I thought I'd mention it. So there's Wexford. So when we mention Wexford, there it is on the right there, and Wicklow is there on the right, and Wicklow is where we get the Brunton's town Hillfort, and that's also where we get the Rathgall Hillfort as well, just below Dublin. So I should have put that in earlier on, so you get an idea where the hell we are in Ireland. But anyway, oh, look at that one there. Oh, we'll do that in a minute. Look at that one. Oh God, flipping out. Anyway, this one is known as Brusseltown Hillfort. Again, County Wicklow. And this you might squint your eyes and think that could easily be placed in Scotland, or that could be easily placed somewhere in Cymru, Wales. Again, not all of these places in Ireland look circular like this, and not all of these places in Ireland look like that one. But again, different horses for courses, right? So I think the one thing that we are saying is that there's never one set of shoes fits everybody, right? That there's you know, we're going to do something here, and maybe this is going to work in this location, and that's not going to work. And obviously I've just given this archetypal view that there were trees everywhere, and then boglands come later, and then maybe boglands were here, there, and everywhere. Again, there are different perspectives and different understandings of how Ireland is and how islands actually function. And particularly if you get the right trees can actually grow quite rapidly. And when you start, and this is the thing, we innately or inadvertently see the past as periods where 1 minute we've got loads of trees, and then the next minute we got no trees, and then the next minute we've got loads of trees again. And as today, you've got about a third of the landscape on this slide is actually trees, right? So again, nothing fits the bill all over. So when we do think about hill forts, we can associate this with the emergence of a new type of a sense of political structure in Ireland. Okay, County Clare, right? So back to the map. Where's County Clare? County Clare is there on the west coast, right? So there we go, County Clare. I'll go on then. Henry, give it a go. Go on, Henry.
I don't think we're even going to go there.
I tell you what, right? You correct me very embarrassingly on TikTok that I got the pronunciation of the King of Ireland wrong, and you can't even get this right. Okay, can we call it Mugan Hillfort? That'll do. Come on, Anne, give it a go.
Muhan Hillfort.
Yes, that'll do. He's really showed you up, Henry. Slap across the.
It could be
Good. Say it again, Anne.
Muhan.
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 Muhan. Tap in the word kisser. Right. You can clearly see that this isn't actually on the top of a hill. It's sort of draped within the landscape, right? You couldn't really call that a top of a hill. That's the point. So, but the one point is with the hill forts are often associated with the emergence of a new type of might be a political structure in landscape rather than like a warring landscape. It's like people are saying, right, you know, what we're going to do, we're going to have these things, and this is going to be your bit, and this is okay. That's where your ancestors are, right? So there's something going on, and there's suddenly there's lots more of these. You know, they just take here, there, and everywhere. And you could say that this sort of structure organizes the landscape. It creates boundaries. It creates social division. It creates social formation. It creates what could be referred as chiefdoms. But these sort of aristocratic senses of chiefdoms and location, and exactly what we look at Hillforts for in Great Britain. The very eminent Lord Colin Renfrew. Yes, we do have lords of archaeology. No, not dark lords, Judith. Don't get too excited. Lords as in a House of Lords, right? Lord Colin Renfrew would say that what we do see from early Neolithic periods is that there's almost as if there's like a core, and everything radiates from it, and then there's like there's like a set boundary or an artificial boundary. So what we're talking about, we're talking about a magnetic thing where you've got a magnetic and you've got a field of little filings around the outside. Remember those scientific things from school, right? And then you've got another magnet and you've got loads of filings, and that creates a boundary, and you've got another magnet of filings, creates a boundary. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about almost as if, right, there's a sense of feel within the landscape. And this is what we're seeing. We actually see this from early Neolithic times as well, where we get from Neolithic times we've got like a oh god, we've got a Neolithic times we've got a barrow, or we've got a burial chamber, and that's for one community, and alongside you've got a barrow and a burial chamber for another community, right? So these hill forts themselves, illustrating the sense of setting the landscape, offering a sense of imposing within the landscape these things with imposing power, broadcasting the power. And that power doesn't need to be height, it needs to be width and sense of the amounts of stones that you actually use. So these display a sense of setting. No, setting power, a sense of setting power. What's the word that you use, Dan?
Organization.
An organization, yes. To organize something. Oh, actually, okay, that's when I say setting, it is a sense of setting, but organization is actually a better word. Thank you for that, Anne. You've got 2 over Henry now, so that's good. So, sense of organization, a sense of setting, a sense of belonging, connection. That's another one, connection. You're connected within what's there, right? So the landscape is the power, and you're almost connecting with the power of what already exists, right? Now, again, when we're thinking about Mohan Hill Fort and we're thinking about the typical typifying hill fort, it's almost as if it's draped within an existing contour, because what you can see, I'll get rid of that line, it's nearly there. What you can see is like a weird sort of turn within the valley, right? And in fact, the hill fort itself spreads like that. It comes around there and it comes like that. So you wouldn't say that that's on the top of any hill. It takes in the valley, so it's almost as if a little sort of dell, as it were, a little come there. And it's also we'll grab this bit. We want to grab this bit. It sort of links with here, and this is what we're going to do. So this is a signpost of who we are to the outside world, and subsequent usage. So if we move that, and maybe we'll do the next one, and then I'm thinking.
Did you pick up the Mohan gold hoard as well?
Could you chuck that in there? And now go on. I haven't picked up that. If you've sent me something, I haven't got it. Go for it.
No, I haven't sent it. They discovered a large number of gold objects in tongs, gold ingots, and other gold jewelry. Unfortunately, as it happens with these things, that this was in the 1850s. A lot ended up getting melted down, but they did make replicas of it before some of that was done. So some does appear actually in the British Museum and in the National Irish Museum. So there seems to have been a supply of gold in the area as well.
And obviously that's a sense of power, wealth, economy, and that actually tries. We mentioned a site when we go. That's a really good link there. we've got a site in Scotland called Trappenlaw, right, which is actually a place that they've actually found a lot of silver. So that's that's within an Iron Age context, and that's a really good link there. So that's one thing that we've not mentioned at all. The readily availability of resources. That's something that we've not talked about at all. But we haven't talked about resources because we've not needed to, because not that it's been obvious, not that it needs to be obvious, but these are created because they are because they are there, and they are created there, and they've got a meaning of strategy there. So as we get to the end of this first session, and yes, we unfortunately do need to. We will end at 9:30 tonight, because I'm so excited with tomorrow. I'm gonna have to get some sleep. But there you go. And I can't say anything about it. I will tell you in a few months, right? But so what we've got here, right? Okay. Now the big question is, yeah, that's more than just a hill fort, right? And it's more than just a hill fort because it's been added to later, right? Because they built up the wall in the medieval period, and it looks a bit more looks a bit more gay, doesn't it? It looks a bit more beautiful, right? But these hill forts, yeah, there you go. I used the word gay in completely the right context. It's totally gay. It's a gay abandoned Irish site. So these shut up, you. I can use the word gay if I want. So I nearly had a sack for using the word gay to describe a person, right? Yeah, but that was years ago. Anyway, and Margaret, shut up. Right. So when you're looking at something like this, it's thinking, oh, that's not really a hill fort, is it? But it is. It is. And that's the point. This is why we had that problem at the beginning. Power broadcasting within Alaska. But again, when you think about it, set back a little bit, just to set back, right? Broadcasting that power might not really been completely to the outside world, right? Let's just go back to the beginning. I need to explain this a minute, but that's a really important point, right? Okay, so you've got this, and you've got trees around and stuff, and it's there, it's making a statement. But who are you making a statement to? You're making a statement to yourself, right? Because to be honest with you, somebody a mile away is not even going to know you've got this anyway, right? So are you doing that for yourself? Are you broadcasting that to yourself and your community to basically say, this is who we are, this is our badge, this is our this is our group on a Tuesday and a Wednesday that we do archaeology. This is what we're doing. Our hill fort is in fact Zoom online and the membership, right? So it's trying to really break down the meaning to make it make more sense and to make it more understandable. So when you go back, this is as we go with Rathgal, the walls today are about a meter tall, right? In most places, probably a little bit deeper, but they weren't massively tall in the past. So you're putting all these stones there, and it's just like, to be honest with you, maybe they didn't care what anyone else thought. They're just going to do it anyway. But they did it. Loads of people did these things. They did them. They wanted to do them. They did it. They were telling us something, right? They were telling us, or they were telling themselves something, right? Now, we always think of us and our ego and our id, and we think about Jung, and we think, oh, right, it's always about the expression on the outside. But Jung might also say that it's also about the expression on the inside, right? Are they expressing something to themselves, right? And I think that's a very Irish thing, a very gentle and tender expressing something to themselves, and the sense of community. I actually feeling quite tearful when I mention that. It's a sense of tenderness, right? And not bragging, actually, right? So we've taken that away. So these hill fort sites would have been the prime locations for people to come together as a community. Again, I've just said it in another way, both in their construction and subsequent use. Maybe everyone was involved in building this. Well, no, they were. Everyone was involved in building this, because the stone is not all there. If the stone was okay, so if we had an Irish giant, right, he dumped a load of stone there and we're going to build it, right? Okay, no, it didn't happen like that, right? So everyone within the landscape would bring some stones. Maybe on a Sunday. Yeah, there we go. Maybe on a Sunday we're going to bring a load of stones here. We're going to do our bit. We've done a bit of farming today, right? We're going to on Sunday afternoon we're going to bring a load of stones. We're going to do our bit, right? And then we're going to go off, and we're going to come back on the next Wednesday, and we're going to put a load more stones there, right? It's like that sense of I think Ireland's the best example in Britain where there is still a sense of pride in their religion, which is undoubtedly not just a religion, which is their identity, a community, which we all had across Britain at one stage anyway. So construction and subsequent use, a community statement, providing a very visual statement of belonging to those within the community, and whether it was or whether it wasn't a statement of control power to those outside. Now the point is, if you're building something like this, is it to control the same people who are helping building it, right? Which I'm going to say no, right? They built it. And is it a matter of, the problem is when you talk about chieftains and people organizing the landscape, right? They're not too far away from being you and me, because there is no standing armies and there are no major gangs of people protecting you, right? So if the people don't like what you're doing and they help you build this, you're not going to last long. And that is another point. They're not big burly men and women who are telling you what to do, and that's not what I'm saying, right? I'm saying it's part of a raison d'etre of the community, and what we're seeing now. So finally getting to the end of this now, it is no wonder then that the construction of Hillforts during this long period has been linked with the development of they've got their identity. So then you think about their language, and who they are in Ireland. And they are perhaps the first monumental signs of an identity. So this is not identity politics. This is identity Ireland. And who the Irish are and perceive is to be seen in what we're seeing today. The Irish Gaelic identity. So what I would do is we're going to go to Rathgal after, and we're going to have a little look at that, and then we're going to the Scottish stuff is not meant to be a full presentation today. It's just sort of, we'll go back to Scotland again, but I just want to mention that today anyway. So we're going to have a break, but we'll have a I'm going to have oh, I haven't got time to fry some. I've got some. I was going to say I've got time to fry mushrooms, right? And when you're working where I am, and you're working with beautiful people, you can have as much food as you can eat all day, right? I just thought maybe I could go. I can't because I'm not there. Bugger. Right. Okay. So what we're going to do now? We're going to end this bit now, and we're going to take a break. And I'm so pleased those of you from a Tuesday have managed to join us tonight, as well. And I know that David did turn up last night on Zoom, because I saw him. I saw something as I'm driving along. I stopped the car and think, oh my God. So somehow David didn't find out, or he did, or whatever. I don't know about Drina, but Ruth is obviously away. And Roger said, I'm not doing Wednesday. I'm doing something else. Say hello to everybody. So I did. So I have. Right. There's stuff in the chat box now. So as we're oh, Judith, verbal diarrhea in the chat box tonight. Anyway, one from Henry. Have a look at Inishman. You find Dun Chocture. It's the island south of Inishmore and Dun Agasha, right? Danagasha Yes, we mentioned that. More forts on Inishmore and Dun, Docker, whatever. Judith, people had and still sometimes have a fear and respect for the fairy folk and didn't want to upset them. Oh my God, why do you have to mention that, Judith? I've got to answer that quickly, right? This idea of the fairy folk was still massively in tow in Ireland up to about 100 odd years ago. There was a case in Ireland where I'll just tell you quickly that the massive belief in a fairy folk in parts of Ireland, that there was a woman whose husband thought she had changed, right? And long story short, he thought if he threw her in the fire, right, then his real wife would come back, right? So he threw his wife in the fire, and unfortunately, she burnt to death, right? It's a true case. And he stood up in court and he said, well, I thought I was burning a fairy woman, right? Because I wanted my wife back. I love my wife. But I thought if I burnt the fairy woman, my real wife would come back. And it was actually a real case in Ireland about the fairy folk. And lots of these forts are thought about the fairy folk forts, right? And that's the thing as well. And you put that in at the end, and Judith put that in the end minute. And is just thinking, well, maybe there was suddenly somewhere in Ireland, there was a disconnection with these locations. Something happened to disconnect people in the late medieval period or into the post-medieval period with these sites, because some were still being used up until about 200 years ago. So if we move it like 300,
Oliver Cromwell.
but it wasn't Oliver Cromwell. It was a change in the Irish mindset and the relationship with these sites that had lasted thousands of years. Oh, I can't blame the bloody English for everything and Oliver Cromwell. And look at my bloody hair. Look at the state of that. Look, my God. I'm getting close to what I'm doing, but I can't say any more. Right. Right. That's how my hair is. Right. Anyway. Right. Anne, anything from you, darling, before we have a break?
The only thing I wondered every time you saw that.
No, you're Anne with an E. Shut up. The other Anne. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I did want to ask a question. About population size. I mean, you showed us on the map so many of these sites, and yet the population size that long ago couldn't have been huge. And even though they would have been built over a time, it still seems an incredible achievement. If I'm thinking straight.
No, you are thinking straight, and you've actually said something really. You've actually answered yourself in part of what you just said. Yeah, they are being built over a long period of time. And even if you think of there's about 90 odd on that map, and even if you put a couple more hundred in Ireland, right, there's a lot more than just that. But obviously these are ones that see a use over a long period of time. So if you focus on the ones that we've just done, the use nearly 90 odd that we've just mentioned, we see on the map. If we just look at those and we just think, right, if we just think about maybe 100, 200 people associated with each of these localities, right? I know that takes us into the tens of thousands, and when we add all the other places and all the rest of it, but that's still a small number of people associated with these little miniature chiefdoms and people wanting to, in other words, basically what it is, it's an extended family. Most of those people would have been related anyway, right? Yeah. So these places are associated with a sense of respect and a sense of community. I use the word community a few times. So it is a sense of identity, community, and connection within small population numbers. And it's easy to become disconnected if you're on a farm living in the middle of nowhere, right? I know it, right? But if you're living within a community, which is quite a small community with something like this, and then it speaks volumes. Yeah, you are right, and it does actually all go together nicely, and it makes it nicely go together in Ireland. Right, okay. If there's nothing else, Anne, I'll go on to the other Anne with an E.
I don't have an E.
Nor does the other Anne. You do now.
I am the other Anne, but I haven't got an E. Anyway, yeah. Every time you show me that done, wrath, blah blah blah, on the Isle of Arran. I think.
Yeah.
Are you sure it wasn't eroded away? The cliffs.
Yeah, it was. It was. We said that last week. It was eroded away. I said that some of these and some of the. Oh, right. Yeah, I didn't make a point of that. I made a point more of that last week. Lots of these places are not what you see. They've changed and they've altered, and they've morphed into other things. No, that is the point. What you're seeing today is not what they had in the past. It's a very different thing what they had in the past. So to try and understand what they're doing from our perspective today is not adherent to understanding what was going on. Thank you, Anne. Thank you. Right. Okay. Andy.
Oh, where's he gone?
He's there. He don't want to say anything.
No sound.
Sorry, I have to switch it off. No, nothing to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Henry.
Just to say, if you look at Inishmore, you've got about 5 sites actually on this small island.
Oh.
2 which look like the Hillforts. So you've got 2 of those, and then you've got easily 2 examples of I think the last photograph you put up of like a stone circular structure, and they're all not far apart. They're actually a relatively close distance to each other. So that's something slightly odd.
Yeah.
And that's
from
all
a
within
fault perspective.
Yeah, that's all within, and maybe that's exactly what we said to Anne then. It was that maybe it is just something built by a small community of an extended family, and that would make perfect sense with what you've just said. So in others, it's not so much chieftains. It's more a sense of reality, of just this is what we're doing. It's our area. It's our family, extended family landscape. One of the things that I used to do when I was talking about the Neolithic period was that before the Neolithic period, I would basically say it's like a family landscape. And when we go into the Neolithic period, it's a Neolithic family community, right? And then somewhere the idea of the family in the Neolithic became the community. And then the community become very territorial. And then you've got in Ireland, it seems like in Ireland, in a way, it seems like maybe these places remain what they are for such a long period of time because the family is still at the core of what these things are about. Because when you've got a community, people's ideas divert from what's going on, right? But when you've got this like family thing that goes on for a long time, it's like maybe that's why these things remained. And I was just going to chuck something really weird in. If you were in a Barbary pirate raid a few hundred years ago, Barbary pirate raid in the late 16 and early 1700s, you can imagine that somebody would come off and they would take the whole community, which was probably all these people that was in some way related or part of an extended family, right? But if they, and I don't mean that in a detrimental way, but maybe when you think about if these people had been in a place like this when the Barbary pirates came, they wouldn't have been able to get them out. So you can see differences of links and connections with these places. Right, I don't know who's just left us. Margaret.
Well, I'm just thinking back then wasn't just about everything that they did. Are you listening?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I can't be asked. Go on.
Wasn't just about everything they did motivated by their spiritual beliefs. And I was just wondering if the Hillforts were abandoned when Christianity arrived.
No, they weren't. That it's completely not. Their belief that the religion has nothing to do with these things because lots of them are still being used in the medieval period. That was the point.
Yeah.
That is the point, Margaret.
There's the old and the new religion, though, wasn't there? There's always this thing going on.
But that's not affected these sites. People are still living them with all these religious changes. That's not affecting any of this.
No.
So this is again, religion's not coming into this. It's not. It's not even touching it.
Were the sites being used for the same reasons,
No,
or did they change the use?
Change the use, and lots of them were being used for different things at different times anyway.
So it could have been that it was the religion, but because the buildings were there, they thought, well, we might as well use them for another reason, just because.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Different reasons over time for different. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking about. All of that. Yeah, we are. So Margaret, don't worry. It's all there. Fine. Don't get too upset. Right. Okay then. I need a break soon. So Goff, anything?
I just wonder if there's much difference between these Irish so-called Hillforts to the Hillforts in the rest of Britain.
Massively different. Well, massively different. 100% different, because it's almost right. The easy answer to that is, right, Goff, is quite simple. In lots of parts of Britain, we suddenly start to see Hillforts emerging, right? And then suddenly in the Roman era, they're just abandoned and they fall off the map. That's the big difference. That is categorically the big difference. And what's happening, I'll just give you one example. For example, we get the sites at Dinas Powys. One minute it's an open area without any banks and ditches. And then the Hillfort site at Dinas Powys, nobody lives there, right? And then suddenly in the end of the Roman era, it's occupied again. And then suddenly at the about 600 years, AD 600, the site's abandoned. We don't have any of that in Ireland. Well, we do have it in some sites in Ireland, but overall the sites in Ireland remain in use. That's the problem. This is the thing. It's like an extended period that goes from thousands of years into more recent times, where these places are used for a huge period of time, but they're not used now. That's the difference, Goff. Suddenly there's a disconnection. Did
you just say
about the design of them rather than
the way they're built?
The way they're built, yes, the design, like, because it looks like the one in my house to me.
Right. Right. So hang on a minute, Anne and Chris, Anne and all the rest. So let me get this right. So the thing is, what you are basically saying is that are they principally broadcast in the same use, or are they or is this that they feel that they need to do this? Is this what we're saying?
The construction of them, the design.
Oh, right. Yes. The construction is basically all the same. It's dry stone. They're dry stone, all of them.
So they were, because I say it looks like the one at my house to me. It's similar to that.
Yes.
That was basically my question. Sorry about that.
Yeah, they're all made. They're dry stone. They're completely dry stone constructions. All of them. It's a circular form. Goff. Yeah, dry stone construction. Some entranceways without any lintels or anything. They're all dry stone. Yeah, that's right, Goff.
Okay. Okay.
So right, Anne, you were going to say something quickly, and
yes,
whoever.
Yes, you mentioned that they were there until the Roman time. Do you think they were sort of
in England?
Yeah, but were they also? Do you think the ownership? You know how land was people claimed ownership. Even monkey tribes do to some degree. And each one that was built was owned, and other people couldn't access it. But I got muddled up with Romans. I thought when they came, that would change.
I think our concept of ownership today is completely different from their ownership. Yes. I think it was like, this is our community, right?
Yes, so, a community ownership. I meant that. I didn't mean a personal ownership, but a community ownership.
Yeah, community ownership. Yeah, exactly. Right, and if Pat and Richard, anything?
Oh, no, thank you very much.
Richard? No.
Just looks they seem to have, I know you've always gone on about Hillforts and not defensive or anything, but these seem to have taken a bit of a look. They look defensive.
I have not in any way today said that they were. I didn't really. We haven't discussed the word defense at all. And maybe me mentioning the thing about the Barbary pirate thing was me saying that they could be looked towards being defensive. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and if you haven't got anything else to say, because you did interrupt, no, anything? Right. Okay, we're gonna.
Thanks.
We're gonna take a break, right? And Anne can tell the other Anne about Anne. Why, as Goff goes off, why don't you tell them all about this pitch, this thing earlier on in the garden centre? What me and
No,
Goff
I wanted to ask Pat how her cataracts were. Well, they're gone.
Great. It's like I've been looking through dirty algae fish water, and now my everything's white and clear and colorful and it's beautiful. Yeah,
Right.
guy they did. Yeah,
Good,
it's
good.
fantastic. Yeah, I really
I nearly
enjoyed
phoned you
the bright
today because I
colors.
thought of, your husband going off to his class. And
Yeah,
I thought, are you going to be on your
helped me
own?
out. Drove me. That was
Were
great.
you?
Yes, you drove me to my blood test a couple days after. Actually, it was
Oh,
the day after,
right.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all right, Anne. He's trying to get me to tell you about when he said earlier that he went yesterday he went outside to his shower and outside his shower and all the animals were out there. He had no clothes on, he said. He jumped in the shower and he loved it. It was lovely, But I just had visions of all the chickens and the animals around him. Oh dear. Yeah, I could imagine that. I could.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to
Anyway, you're going to have a coffee now. I'm going to have a coffee too.
A decaf.
So you haven't been going anywhere there really, except Richard took you, did he?
No, I've been driving. I drove to Cardiff today.
Oh my God.
Yes, yeah, all the way to Cardiff. And I can see so clearly. I see so much better, even though
Oh, I wonder if I need mine done.
yeah, well, I put this contact in and it's sort of yellowy and mucky, the eyeball is, the vision. And on this side, it's clear and white, and this is like,
Oh, lovely. Well, that's what my brother said. He said he's never seen so clearly after he had his cataract done, and you don't realize it.
Oh, I knew when I got in the shower, those tiles seemed to be yellowish, and I could see some yellow spots. But I didn't think about the rest of the time in the daytime. I'm looking through this yellow haze,
Oh, yeah. Mine is. I'm just looking through a haze. It's it's only grey.
Well, I still could drive because I noticed even through the haze, you can see a license plate, But
yeah.
Look through this.
No, it did. Yeah, I did read about it, and it did say that the halos are to do with cataracts.
Yes, I checked last night, and
or possibly glaucoma, but
this new lens has no halo. I'm going to my rainbow, circular rainbows around night lights are going to be gone when this one goes, because I can still see a nice circular rainbow, all the colors of the rainbow.
Oh, right. Gosh.
Anyhow,
oh well.
a couple of weeks, I've got to have an eye test, and they give that back to the hospital, and then they'll decide how soon I can get the other one done.
Oh right, yeah. I drove to Landock today.
Oh great, yeah.
I went to see my mother-in-law, and Joe sat by me, and he told me when I could go.
Oh, Rich tells me everything when I'm driving. 2 blocks from the house. He's told
I hadn't seen my mother-in-law for like it must have been 6 weeks, but she's all right, I mean, I think that generation, 96, 98.
Well, I went to visit a friend today. She's had her 90th birthday, and she said, "Did I tell you I totaled my car?" And I said, "What?" And she was at a stoplight, and she said something went clunk, and then I was racing across the road, and I just tried to drive in behind a fence, to get safe away from other cars and stuff, and it stopped then, and but she totaled her car. She she blew the bag off the passenger side. Her side was okay, so she could get out of the thing. She wasn't battered or bruised or broken, and the car was totaled though. And she says because she didn't get hit by a car, she didn't hit a car. It was just her shooting over across.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, who was that?
Well, her name is Jill, and I met her when I was taking a river cruise a couple of years ago. She was one of the solos, you know.
Yeah.
So I got to talk to her.
Oh, you were brave.
What?
You were brave. Oh, she was going solo.
Yeah, she was brave. Yeah. Yeah, there were 6 women all solo.
Not you.
The ship would then make a table of all the solos so they all could sit together, you know, because otherwise you're on your own or you're, you know,
yeah,
on a couple or something, you know. So I met her one time when Rich was off doing something and I was sitting down, you know. So we became friends and found out she was from Cardiff. You know, I mean, she could have been from anywhere, you know, because we met near the Black Sea. You know? On this river cruise. So yeah, she's funny.
Yeah, I'll just go and get something to drink, I think.
Me too. Yep.
Okay, if I can.
Yeah, if I can. I can go downstairs. Oh, God. Oh.
Thank you for the book, Sandy.
No problem. I hope glad you got them and they didn't get too wet. Your car was in the car. I thought, oh, I'll just pop round with those books because I kept forgetting about it. But I guess you must have been out with the little dog.
I was out with the dog.
Yeah. Jolly good. I thought I'd returning my library book. You see, Anne.
Well, it's just as much yours as it is mine, you know.
But libraries don't work if you keep them, though, do they? So. But I remember you said you wanted to have a look at that Lancashire Witches as well.
Yeah, I'll enjoy reading that.
Yeah, it's quite a good, straightforward account. So.
Yeah.
I got it on the 400th anniversary. Just happened to be, just by chance, went to Lancaster with the girls to the castle. Well, we went to Lancaster and discovered that the castle was open.
Yeah.
And they'd actually opened up the dungeon in the bottom of the tower where they'd actually imprisoned them and where the older one, old Demdike, actually died.
Oh, poor old thing.
Yeah, wasn't a very nice place. But,
I can't imagine any dungeons would be very pleasant in those days.
No.
Poor things.
Yeah.
Well, Anne's got a dungeon. It's the only dungeon you actually want to go into.
Right.
I got a feeling. I got a funny feeling. She imagined me naked in the shower.
Oh, really?
Well, she wanted to talk about it, didn't she?
I don't know. Did she? I didn't hear that.
She's told Goff the story twice now.
Oh. I learnt a new word today.
What was that?
A new archaeological word.
Don't tell me it was fossick.
No, it was
fossick.
A ha-ha.
Yes. Basically, well, you tell us what that is, but it's to do with a bank. Go for it.
It's more architectural, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a sunken wall.
Yes,
that's
Or
right.
perimeter fence that you can't. So you come across it and you're surprised and you say, "Aha!"
Yeah, that's when you fall over it when you're drunk. Yes, 'cause you can't see. The whole point is you can't see it from the house, can you? So
No.
it's supposed to keep the landscape and the vista open, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've never heard of that before, and they kept talking about the ha-ha.
Yeah,
and I thought,
they have a good one at Levens.
I googled it when I got home.
To stop the deer and the animals getting into the garden, the house gardens, without having a fence. You can see there's a good one on the A6 out of Milnthorpe. Just before you get to Beetham, there's the boundary of the Dalham Park, and you can see there's a bank with a drop there before the wall, so it's kind of like a ha-ha and a wall.
Right.
To try and put them off jumping over the wall. So
I tell you what, there's really good ha-has at Chirk Castle in North Wales. It's that was a capability Brown thing as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's Levens. Yeah.
There was a man at the meeting today, this archaeology group, who remembered Karl.
Oh fuck! Right, really?
But
yes.
You mean our Karl or this Karl?
Our Karl.
All right, yeah, different Karl. The other Karl.
Not the other Karl. No.
Karl J. Langford Karl.
Hey.
Yeah.
You're not going to stop your. You're not going to start your shenanigans.
And I'm hearing somebody talking about me.
+10.
Ooh.
Anne, we're going to do one thing at a time. Somebody's talking about me. I want to hear it. Go for it.
I can't remember the man's name. He's an archivist.
Yes.
And I think when you were living down Red Hills Road, I think he knew you from there. It looks a bit like Rees-Mogg fella. Jacob Rees-Mogg is kind of tall and thin with glasses.
Oh, we remember him, I think, Andy. That was that guy who, yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Old-fashioned.
Do you think?
Yeah. I think I can remember. Oh, it's good to be remembered, Andy, even if it's just by one person. That's good. I like it.
When you used to do your lectures in Arnside.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, well, give him my love when you see him next. I think I know you're talking about. Yeah.
Mm.
All our people were nice in Arnside. Right, Anne, you do your bit because we've got to crack on.
Right, go on then.
No, Anne, what were you going to say?
Nothing.
You're losing the plot here. You know what I mean? I don't know what the. I tell you what, it would have been absolutely brilliant to have had her in my live Lantuit Major class. At which point Goff left. Right, okay. I gotta be honest with you. I would have much prefer Anne in Lantuit Major than other person. Goff.
Yeah, right there.
I gotta be honest with you.
I was going to say, don't matter.
Tell us quickly because I want to crack on with the lecture.
And don't you think Andy looks like Ryland?
Oh?
Yeah, he does. Nobody knows who Ryland is now. Can we just get on? Thank you. Oh. Right, okay, right.
Is that
now,
good?
Oh, no. He's not me. Right, okay. I just want to give you a little bit of information about this site. Right now, this is Rathgal. Now, for where this site is, Rathgal is in County Wicklow, and there is County Wicklow, so we know where it is, right, Anne? Now, I didn't want to say much about this site because it was like a nice tender site, in an Irish context. It's known as a multi-valet hill fort, so it's got more than one ditch around the outside, right? Now, this overall site itself, that sort of oblong site, comprises an area of a whopping 7.5 hectares, which is 7 Millennium Stadiums in Cardiff put together. It doesn't look that big, but it is. And this goes, the wall structure, the construction of this goes all the way back to the Bronze Age. In fact, the heart of the Bronze Age, 3,200 years ago. So it's a really, really nice example. And it was excavated in 1969 partially. And I just thought, oh, this was nice and tender to actually show you. But what I wanted to show you was actually the height of the wall. And it's no more than about 1 meter high. Now, let's just take everything that I've said, and you can see here that this, even if this is 2 meters high, I can't imagine this can be more than another meter high, because where's the stones gone? But even if this is 2 meters high, it's not really going to stand out across the landscape, is it? Right. So when I was fudging that issue over whether these made statements to the wider world, the statements to the wider world are actually to the people who are actually here on site, right? It is an impressive site. It's a large site, but the wall isn't massively impressive. But it's very, very wide. It's a very, very wide wall. That they could have made this higher, but they decided to make it wider. Now, this is not a phenomenon that's unique to this site. And it's not far away from the town of Shillelagh. Now, this takes us into understanding. If we go back to that, we can clearly see that there's an internal enclosure, there's a middle enclosure, and there's an outer enclosure. So there's in essence 1, 2, 3 series of walls. Right, one would have sufficed, but Richard mentioned earlier on, not picking on Richard, but Richard's point was really important, right? This is not what Richard was talking about defensive, right? What Richard was talking about defensive were those other sites, that looks defensive, right? And, when we think about it as well, our friend, that looks defensive. However, our site, this one here, Rathgal, doesn't look defensive, right? And a point that Judith made earlier on, this is not the reason, but you could think that maybe fairy forts, the idea of fairy forts, and thinking, well, maybe as people over the past 200 years, 300 years have lost what these actually meant, right? And even people living here in the medieval period and later, maybe it went over to the sense that these were actually for the fairy people. And when you think about it, it's quite a low-lying wall, so maybe these were for the fairy people. But again, dating all the way back to the Bronze Age and the modern day and age, consisting of roughly concentric stone ramparts. And what we've got as well is this sort of strengthening of that one in the middle in the medieval period. And this is actually in the national. This is in the care of the National Monuments Organization. So excavations in year 1969, and we'll actually have a little look at that. So they excavated half of it. And why did they excavate half of the inside of this building? Because they needed to get a cross section of the history of the site. And you can actually get an idea that there seems to be another circular enclosure inside as well. If you actually look, there seems to be there seems to be something else going on there as well. So obviously the excavations are really important to try and understand this site, but you can actually see, as you start to see excavation wise, the walls look a lot wider. And even though this wall, the central wall, is actually several more meters higher than the one on the outside, again, these are not towering high walls, right? And again, against that little bit of the conversation that we had at the end with Richard, most of them look defensive, but this is clearly something else because they're wider walls. Why do they make the walls wider? And the other thing as well is, if you look, right, if you look at the width on that wall and look at the width on that one, and it's the same, and you're thinking, right, okay, this is something not quite right about this. And there is something not quite right about all of these ones. And obviously they've got lots of sort of senses of direction and understanding about these sites, right? If we look at another image as well, there's a little bit of an entranceway, right? And this, again, this is the outer wall, and obviously this is several meters higher on this one, right? Other than the other bit what we've seen, which was a meter higher, maybe about 2 meters higher. So this is where the entranceway is. And oh, where was that other image? Not that. I wanted to show you. Oh, there was oh God, there was another aerial view, which I don't seem to have, but you can get a good idea what's going on with the walls here, right? From the excavation. So excavated by Barry Rafferty. And it yielded a lot of artifacts going all the way to the Bronze Age into the modern day and age. So obviously in the Bronze Age they didn't have ceramic vessels, but obviously this is from post-medieval times as well. And they're finding potsherds from all the way through the periods, Bronze Age onwards, and obviously any evidence from before as well, pottery going on Bronze Age all the way through into the modern day and age. And this is something odd as well. A number of gold items have also been found at the site as well. And you're thinking, in most excavations that I know of in a British archaeological context, finding gold items is extremely rare. Now, go and ask me the question if I've ever found any gold artifacts. Yes. Gold rings found on a beach, which were modern. I've never found any gold artifacts on an archaeological excavation. But obviously, with the example that Henry made earlier on, obviously gold isn't a scarce thing to find at these sites. You do find them in archaeological excavations, and obviously associated with this site, it's there is also a link with this site. That part of the site may have had a burial context later on as well. People would bury people here, and you're thinking, right, okay, so prehistory. Going into more modern times, and they've obviously got people being buried here at the site. The other archaeological evidence told us that the evidence of metalworking, and obviously got nice bit of a plan there, and there it is, giving you more of a context, right? And it's showing a fourth stone rampart as well. That's on the outside. So we've got the three main ramparts of stone. So you've got the one in the middle there, we've got the blue bit, and then you've got rampart 2 and you've got rampart 3, and a fourth rampart or a boundary wall around that as well, maybe a larger community. But anyway, back to what we were thinking about, the archaeological evidence as well, and there was some archaeological excavation outside the area as well, and evidence of metalworking comes from casts for tools and weapons, with burials pointing to a ritual element to the site beyond its agricultural and domestic use. And again, you've got a sense of everything going on here. Again, repeat that: domestic, agricultural, ritual, everything's going on with this site. So there are numerous legends. Again, lots of these sites have legends associated with them as well. There are numerous legends that are associated with the site, including fairies and as a site of pilgrimage for childless couples. So again, this site takes another meaning and another connection with the landscape. And Rathgal is undoubtedly one of those sites in Ireland that seemingly has a use and a purpose throughout the periods, not just religious, settlement, agricultural, burial, and so on. So this is a nice little interesting site I wanted to bring you. And finally, I wanted to just do a tiny little bit of a thing of Scotland before we leave there, though, just to sort of a reminder of Rathgal as we move away. So there's the wall, and that's going to be the secondary wall, and that's that wall, the secondary walls, internal wall, secondary wall, third wall. Obviously, you're talking about a fourth rampart around the outside, making it a multivalent site. Again, the excavations, again, the width of the wall, the incredible width of that wall, huge width. I haven't got a scale on there, but that's more than 3 or 4 meters wide. And you're thinking, well, that could have been massively tall, but it wasn't. It was wide rather than high. Entranceway there, obviously all random rubble, bit of a plan there, and a bit more of a site plan in the excavation as well. And obviously later stuff as well. Just quickly, people are living here in the post-medieval period. And obviously post-medieval banks and so on. And again, this is a site that's been used for a long period of time. And again, it's talking about evidence of medieval wall heightening as well. And what you've got, the very interesting here, that you've got something, hang on, something very interesting here, get rid of that. That you've got something that is a ring ditch, which is here, which is going to be Bronze Age, and you've got something that's medieval, which is an enclosure, which is a housing enclosure again, and people living here for a very long period of time, which is really, really different when we're thinking about these Hillfort sites. Now, in closing today, we will be finished at we will be finishing in 10 minutes. And I just wanted to mention a little bit about Scotland. This is Trapran Law, which I mentioned earlier on, the site that you got a lot of silver evidence. That's really going to come up when we do a little bit more about Scotland. So Hillforts in Scotland, mainly lots of them are normal earthworks, but lots of them are stone sites as well. And we've got the phenomenon known as vitrified forts as well, where they have basically set light to the timbers. And they've deliberately done this, and they put wood through and set light to it, and they've burnt the thing. And then what they've done, it's helped strengthen the fort, vitrified forts, which is an absolutely fascinating thing indeed, hugely fascinating. I don't know if we'll have time to do vitrified forts next week. I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. So anyway, Hillforts in Scotland, fascinating. And what we do find is that lots of the existing banks and ditches with these sites are incorporated in modern boundaries. So instead of removing the banks and ditches, and they've actually been placed into the sense of the boundary landscape of modern Scotland. And they've been studied at least since the 1700s. And excavation and field work throughout from then onwards into the 1900s. There were large numbers of archaeological investigations at these specific sites, with an emphasis on establishing a chronology of the forts. And this is just for Judith, who follows my King Arthur stuff. Guess who excavated lots of these sites in Scotland? A certain Professor Eric Talbot, Judith. Yes. So that's the summary thing of my Arthurian things the next few days. Anyway, that'll come to link with you. Forts have been classified by this is really interesting. Forts in Scotland, again, weird classifications. There are ones that clearly might just be ritualistic forts. What? Militarily defensive forts, and ones that usually go into the category of just there because they're there and that's it. So what we do see is these types of sites. Look at that huge Trapran Law there, great site. And these sites themselves, and this is known as Peace No Hillfort. And I decided I want to mention a little bit about Peace No Hillfort by the end. But they were interested. They seem to be in Scotland. They've been in Scotland for at least 3,000 years. In England and Wales, they seem to be developed a little bit later, and you're starting to think, right, why are these being developed in Ireland a lot earlier, and why are they being developed in Scotland early as well? Interesting. So there's 1,000 of these across Scotland, and I think the point the conversation we had earlier on, I think the point is that lots of these were completely abandoned in the Roman era. They were never used again. They were never utilized again, which is completely different from what we're seeing in Ireland. Do you see that? That's the point. And then you've got the vitrified forts. And if we have a little look, I don't want to take too much away. So vitrification, where you can see there that the stone's been burnt to such these are actually examples in France actually, but they've been burnt that the stone has actually melted, right? So instead of actually using mortar, they're putting wood into they're building up the walls, putting put log through which you've got wood through, and you've got wood on the outside, right, and a big pile of wood on the outside, and they set light to it, and it vitrifies the stone, and it solidifies. This is a little bit of a map of I don't want to rush this. Let's slow down. A little bit of a map of where lots of these forts are in Scotland, and back to the point that Henry made earlier on. That you've got a load of forts within a small area of some areas in Ireland, right? You can exactly see that in Scotland as well. You can see that up in the Grampians, which is the heart of Scotland, there ain't as many, right? Maybe they didn't need them, maybe they didn't want them, or maybe there was nobody living there. So many of these vitrified examples date from many periods across the again vitrified forts. We're not seeing them in Ireland, or anywhere else in Britain. Obviously the Scots have got the skill, and they've got the knowledge to do this. After Roman occupation in the after the Roman world, right? So we've got the Roman era, we've got the AD 100s, a little bit before that with Agricola in Scotland in the AD 80 odds, AD 83, AD 84, and that type of thing. Lots of these forts are abandoned, but some of them actually do come back. They're abandoned for hundreds and hundreds of years, but some of them do actually come back into use in the 600-700s, right? Which could be said to be part of that idea of creating small little kingdoms or chieftains. And actually Edinburgh, where Edinburgh Castle is, that was originally a hill fort, and another location known as Dunbarton. So there's a fascinating story about these sites, and I'm just really trying to work out what I should do left with my
remaining
that's
not Ireland down there, or is it an island?
Well, it's a bloody big island. That is Ireland on the left, Dan.
Yeah.
That's not the Isle of Man. That's Ireland.
No, that's what I mean. They've got hill forts.
Yeah, we just said we just done Ireland, for God's sake, Anne.
But they haven't got a lot in the north. There's not a lot in the north.
They haven't, because they're Protestants. So what? Anne, shut up.
Yeah,
Anne.
sorry.
Good. So one of the thinking about all of this, and thinking about trying to get the context. There is so much being published. I haven't got time to do the piece no Hillfort now, but there's been so much being published about these sites. There's been so much investigation. But what I'll just mention just quickly, on that site there, that's a look at that one. It's got sort of this is Dumbarton Rock, right? That you can clearly see that it's two big rocks sticking out, and you can clearly see evidence at the top there of, hang on, get rid of that. Clearly see evidence at the top there of a ditch, right? So a rock cut ditch, and you can obviously see evidence of something over here. So that's Dumbarton Rock, but this was refortified in the medieval period. It would have become very important in later times as well. But just wanted mention a tiny bit about this vitrification, so it's in our heads. if we are able to do it for next week. So vitrified forts are stone enclosures whose walls have been subject to vitrification through heat, intense heat. It was long thought that these structures were unique to Scotland, but we do actually find them in the likes of France as well. They've been since found in other areas as well as France. Now, this example of vitrified fort. Vitrified forts are generally situated on hills, offering strong defensive positions. Their form seems to have been determined by the contour of the flat summits, which they enclose. So, in other words, inevitably flat summit, which is more like Edinburgh. And the walls could be nearly 4 meters high. And it's basically the vitrification process is that there's no lime, there's no cement has been found at any of these structures. And the fusion has been caused by the application of intense heat. And this isn't across the whole fort, but it's almost as if the stones have been melted, right? As in these examples in France. So in other words, this has fused all the rock together. And it's almost enveloped in a glassy enamel-like coating, which binds them into a uniform whole. And at times, though rarely, the entire length of the wall presents one solid mass of vitrified substance. And let's just do this last point here, and that'll be it. It is not clear why or how the walls were subject to vitrification. I've given you one explanation, but is that the actual explanation? Some antiquarians have argued that it was done to strengthen the wall, but the heating actually weakens the structure. It doesn't strengthen it. Battle damage is also unlikely to be the cause, as the walls are thought to have been subject to carefully maintained fires to ensure they were hot enough for vitrification to take place. So the point is, when we used to find these in Scotland, lots of them, I don't know exactly how many there are in Scotland. There are 70 examples of these in Scotland. It used to be said that the vitrified forts in Scotland, over 70 that we've identified out of the 1,000, maybe there's 100 or whatever, but it used to be thought that this was evidence of the Romans besieging these sites. And it was evidence that these forts had been clearly used in battle and campaigning and sieges. But then turned out that the vitrification, as we've already said, was done deliberately, right? And not due to a siege. So you can imagine loads of it has been vitrified, and it's all been vitrified at the same temperature and so on. And you start to think, right, okay, that's not due to the Romans besieging these forts. It's due to the fact that they did them themselves. And it wasn't due to any kind of conflict. And I think what we will do now, we will call it a day. And I've got to get up tomorrow for wherever I'm going, and I will tell you all about it again. And we're going to call that a day, and we're going to fight, because I know Pat needs to get to bed to rest her eyes. And I don't know if it's me, but my eyes seem to see Pat as a blur.
Yeah, me too. Oh, there it comes. There it comes. It woke up.
I see everyone as a blur.
Well, you don't see me as a blur standing naked in a field, do you? Right, okay.
Oh, that's my imagination.
Well, it's not something that Andy imagines, I can tell you now.
No, I must admit, it hasn't crossed my mind until tonight, but it's probably going to haunt me now, isn't it? Yeah. Blooming actors, eh?
He said it was therapeutic.
No, it might be therapeutic to you, but Andy has not imagined being naked at all. Please tell me you haven't, Andy. Anything you want to say?
No, definitely haven't. No. Hillforts, they really amaze me. It's really interesting comparing it with Ireland. Thank you for doing that, because they fundamentally, they're the same shape and the same kind of construction as in multi-valeted, but they're so different as well at the same time. You know, you show those aerial pictures you've got. it clearly would be Ireland. It couldn't be anywhere else. Well, apart from one or two, maybe in Scotland, who were perhaps built by the Irish as well. But the architect went over there and did a few jobs as well. But it's very different to the English ones, which is amazing.
Yeah, the English ones are sprawling like Hod Hill and Maiden Castle,
but nearly all
Hamilton Hill.
Mud banks or as well, but not the stone, carefully built stone ones like they have in Ireland and that. So
Theirs better than ours then.
Oh, yeah, obviously the Irish are better, and the Scotland. But the one thing is with the Irish examples is that they've gone overboard with creating these really wide walls that are not exactly tall in some places.
Yeah.
Some are, as you know, but it's like they've gone over. It's almost as if they want to create something that they can be proud of that doesn't necessarily mean to be, as Richard said, defensive in some cases. So very, very different.
I don't know whether it's age as well, and they've been robbed out, but they're not linear in that width either, which is which really odd. It's like maybe one family built one bit, we're going to build ours bigger than theirs. But
no, the Irish are not like that. Don't be so silly.
Maybe they use slaves from England to build it.
Could I ask about the?
Yeah, they might have.
Yeah. Right, okay. Anything else, Andy, before we go to the other end?
Thank you. Love. Yeah, could do Hillforts forever. Love them.
Well, we'll do Vitrified next week as well. Okay, well done, Andy. Anything from you, and number 8?
Well, what I was going to ask about with the vitrification, because as soon as you mentioned it, I was thinking about when they used to take stones out of castle walls, to weaken them on, and when they had square towers and. And that's why they started building round ones. But then, and that came to mind. But then when you said it weakens the structure, the vitrification altogether, why did they do it?
It makes them more friable. It may have heated up the stone and melted it. Makes it friable. So the overall structure of the stone isn't as composite as it had been. And it's an odd one.
I think
what it may have done was it may have been appropriate with the timber structures that were associated with them. And obviously, eventually, the stone is starting to decay and decay at a greater rate. I don't know, but obviously, at grain level, it's not going to be as strong. So granular level.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else from you, Anne, we'll go quickly on to Judith. We haven't heard much of Judith tonight.
Oh, they're brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
And the funny thing is, years and years and years ago, I went to Bolton Glass and I didn't even know there was a Hillfort there. Could have gone to see it.
Well, now you know. You need to get there.
I know. We'll have to go again, won't we?
When you're seeing me in my live show, you can get that image of me in a field.
Oh God, no! I have to go hypnosis to get rid of that.
Anything else from you, Judith?
No, that's it. Thank you.
What about you, Margaret?
No, I'm just looking through a book from our library about the Guide to Prehistoric Scotland. And it lists all of the Hillforts and settlements in Scotland. And
best of luck.
So many of them, and a lot of them end in the word law. There's law, hair law, this law and that law. I just wondered what the law meant.
That's your homework for next week. Henry, you're not allowed to cheat on that because it's not in Ireland. Right. Henry's only allowed to do Ireland. That's it. Okay. And if there's nothing else from you, Margaret, we'll do Henry.
Nothing more from me. No.
I did have a list of questions, but I don't think you've got enough time, so we'll leave it for another occasion.
Actually, chuck in a few, right? But chuck in a few because we've more or less done the titans of talk. Go on, give a.
I think a list gave you something. Judith raised the question about round towers.
Yeah.
I know it's not the same era, but you've got Glendalough in County Wicklow as well, which is a monastic site. Anne will know it very well. She should have been up at several of the towers.
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
you've got areas of round towers, but as I say, that's a different era.
Yes,
but it's a
yes.
feature anyway.
Yeah, and it's obviously a specific vernacular feature to Ireland as well. Yeah.
The other thing is in County Mayo, which is not far from your Inishmore, etc. area, you've got the oldest field systems of agriculture. Now, one of the questions would be, you've got all this building work going on these small islands, but you've got your food production going away merrily on the mainland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a linkage?
So what is that is actually quite a really deep thing, and a really deep thing is with this is that what are they producing on this island if it's very much based on having with Aaron as well, there's more than just one of these things. How are they, this is the thing. Obviously there was more land available to see, but the main principle is that is it such a warfare like society if they're having to just nicely trade and move things around, or is it more of a peaceful society? And that's the point that you're actually getting by what you've just said. It's a long way to have these things from agricultural settings. It makes it a little bit more community and peaceful landscape than maybe it's been indicated. But we haven't really talked much about war and defense. It really hasn't come into this discussion today. And I think that's a really good point. There's something else going on there. And maybe it's, as we've said, it's more of a peaceful landscape where they are able to trade and they're able to farm into certain areas.
I think also you got this case of these islands that are on the furthest westerly point of Europe.
Yeah.
It's like the edge of a horizon.
Yes. And you go beyond and there's another world a long way away.
Yeah.
Well, have they found any evidence of warfare?
Exactly.
Other than at Hill?
Well, only in the folk myths, in the mythology.
Lots in this is the point. We're not getting lots of destruction and death and war and competition in Ireland as might be the case elsewhere. So yeah. Anything else from you, Henry, before we crack to Pat?
I think the other thing, you might just need to think about the population of Ireland slightly differently, because by the time you get to the 1840s, which I know is centuries later, 1,000 years or more, you're at 8.5 million.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
So
and then they all died of the plague.
No, they didn't. It was the bloody potato famine, you silly woman. Carry on, Henry.
The potato famine.
She remembers the potato famine. I'm a bit worried now.
Yeah, I am. So what is your point, Henry? What is your point, Henry?
I think really that the population may have been possibly larger than we probably estimate, because of the ability to build these things and farm as well, that you're going to have enough bodies to achieve both.
And actually, I think taken away from that, they were still able to do it within that landscape. So that there's obviously more positive going on in Ireland than the negatives of not being able to support themselves. And I think that's a good point. But actually, there's a key point with what he just mentioned, right? There was enough food in Ireland in the potato famine. It's just that the people who owned the land weren't allowing people to have the corn and the potato. They preferred to sell it to make profit than to give it to the people. So there was no actual potato famine in Ireland. The food was there, but it wasn't distributed rightly. But it was distributed rightly in earlier periods. And that is a really good point, Henry.
Yeah.
Well, there was a potato disease that blighted the potatoes, but they had other food.
Yeah, that is the point I just made. That is exactly the point.
Yeah,
right.
The farmers would not give them other food.
Exactly, but the point is they were able to support themselves. And remember, there were no potatoes in Ireland 4,000 years ago. Right, Judith, quickly, and then Pat. Judith.
Sorry, there was a thing called the Corn Laws in this country, in England, and apparently the Corn Laws meant. Yeah, I'm a bit fuzzy about it, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I did when when we were in Ireland, there was a lot of stuff about the potato famine. And apparently one of the complaints of the Irish people was that they could have access to corn, but because their digestive systems were so unused to it, that they virtually couldn't digest it, and it made them really ill.
Oh,
So
right.
we're told. So we're told.
Yeah.
I remember reading that while we were there.
That sounds like it's just a bloody excuse. It really does. But yeah,
okay. All right.
it makes sense. I tell you what, we'll put this through Parliament, and that no, it
I don't
that's
know.
what we're going to go with.
I think it's in the DNA. I think it has affected people.
But then again, the point is that they were eating corn before they were eating potatoes, right, Pat?
I'm concerned about water. There's all those people. Where's the drinking water?
The answer is the answer is quite simply, with everything that we've already done now, is that they did have enough water and they were able to support themselves. And you're the only person to spot that there doesn't seem to be any wells or any of these things at any of these places. However, they were able to support themselves, and we haven't even looked at that. We haven't even mentioned that once.
Pots sitting around to collect the water. I don't know.
They probably had there probably was a lot of access to water, because if they didn't have water, then
I think they've identified trains on some of these sites.
Storage things,
so for water collection, but also you've got large locks. Freshwater locks.
Lakes.
Yes. There's lots of water courses and systems.
There's that stuff that falls out of the sky quite frequently.
Yeah.
Acid rain.
Wouldn't have been then.
No, definitely not. Right. Okay. Nobody talks about acid rain now, do they? They talk about that lie, which is chemtrails. Right. Okay. Then. Anything else, Pat?
What about waste? How did they get rid of all that? Did they throw it in the ditch?
Perfect for the fields. The one thing that we do as archaeologists is when we're field walking. When you see bits of pottery broken across fields that there's no settlement, it means that they're moving all their waste, animal and human waste, onto the fields, which we did do in this country quite successfully up until recent times, and now we don't do it, unfortunately. So,
I think we do.
well, not officially. Right. Okay. Anne, say something quick.
The only other thing I was going to say was I was interested you didn't mention Tara, because obviously Tara was a very important site in Ireland. It is now, it was then in the Middle Ages and everything. And it has got 2 little ring forts there.
Yeah.
It has got 2 little, but they are much smaller than the ones you've shown us today.
I've come across Tara a couple of times in the past, and I know it's an important location, but we couldn't do everything. But yes, there's a lot more to Ireland than meets the eye, and they're obviously still finding more things all the time as we come across. Anyway, thanks for that, Anne. Right, nothing from you, Richard?
No. I'm away anyway. I'm off.
Away.
Okay. Night, Richard. So one more. Night, Rich.
I'm away.
So night, Rich. Right. So. Anne, shut up. Last one. Goff.
No questions. Thanks for that. Very interesting. Look forward to next week.
And I tell you what, that was really intense tonight, and we've gone over because there are a lot more questions, but obviously there was a few more from Tuesday. So back to normal Tuesday next week at 7:30, and obviously we'll be back for our usual here at earlier time if you want to get your. But we usually start for you guys at 7:15, and anyone else who does the earlier session at 6:45. There's no other questions. I really appreciate the support this week, and Scatnest next week. So we'll call it a night. So good night. We've got good night, Richard, Andy, Anne, Goff, Anne, Henry, Margaret, Pat, and Judith. Night, folks.
Night.
Night, Judith. Don't forget to imagine me every night.
Thanks, Carl.
Night, Andy.
Night.
Night, Henry and Anne.
Bye.
Bye. Anyway, thanks for your contributions, you two, Henry and Anne. No, no,
No, no,
no,
no,
no,
no,
no.
no, no.
You know, mushroom sandwich now. Henry, I am totally and effingly right. On that night, I'm off. You still there, Henry? Probably. Who's still there?
You should have come on the road trip to Ireland for 3 weeks. You would have seen
Oh.
some. You would have seen some sights.
Yeah, a load of people totally pissed every night. Yeah.
No, some really impressive sights.
So when you say road trip, was it internal or road trip around the outside?
No, we went up through Wexford, Athlone, up the coast of Donegal, right up to the north of Donegal, back down to Connemara on the coast of Clifton, then back down to Killaloe, so the lakes, and then
the lakes, yeah,
and then down to Tralee, Kerry, Dingle. I think you would have been all right. You would have been at home in Dingle, Blasket Islands.
yeah. Oh, cool. So you managed to do it in 3 weeks, then?
Just about.
Well, hang on. Your road trip, was it a road trip with just you and the missus, or the children, or the
Oh
or
no,
was it?
no, they were out. They've got their own things to do. It's just the two of us.
Ah, good. And the odd hotel along the way. Brilliant.
Oh yes, several of those. But anyway, I'll leave you to go and lie down in a darkened room.
I need to lie down in a darkened room because I've got to be I've got I've got a very long day tomorrow, but I've got a later start, so I'm gonna get up really early. So brilliant. Okay then,
Right,
I'll see you next week, Henry. Thanks for
leave you
all
to
that.
it. Bye for now.
Thank you. No night. Right, anyway, where did everybody where did everybody go to online? Anyone Anna and Reese, 1914. I don't know what the friggin' hell that's got to do with. Right, so I'm going to anyway. Thanks everybody online watching and taking part. Whoever Puck was. I'm glad. Hopefully Anna, you remained with us, and Meg, and the dodgy git. Yeah. New Grange is a chemical reaction chamber making green vitriol. Right, I'm glad you're still here listening, Anna. I don't know what's bloody happened to us. It's, like we had like 9 people online at one point, and like and subscribe. So what I'm gonna do the usual thing, Anna. Right, it's when you start wearing a dress, then you've got to worry. Right, so okay, I'm just gonna read through all of these because I like doing my chat. So, quite a boring one to start off with. Henry back in 5 minutes, so that's that one. Have a look at Inish Man, which is INISH Man. You find a Dun Cockacur, CHONCHUIR. It's the island south of Inishmore, again, and Dun Agosha, which is the AONGHASA. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write that down actually, because I'm going to look at I'm going to look at Inish Man, right? And I'm glad you enjoyed it all, including Anne having sexual fantasies about me standing in a field naked. I think that's quite nice. More thoughts on Inishmore Dundochathia, which is DUNDUCHATHIR, which must be Dundochashire is actually the name of a location rather than an island, but Inishmore's more being Welsh for sea, more. And what else have we got from Henry? Oh, this is from is that Dundochashire? Right, I understand that's not an island, that's a location. Judith said people had and still sometimes have a fear and respect for the fairy folk and didn't want to upset them. Yeah, I think that's true. Don't fuck with fairies. Don't upset fairies. I used to do them, fairies. Respect them on my ghost walks. I think this is the last one. Oh, no, it's not. Fairy rings may be some of the circles were used to house the family fairy. Yeah, I think I mentioned that, didn't I? About the concept of the circle being a location for the fairies, fairy house, the family fairy house, family fairy house. And then finally, from Henry, I think, you had the LiDAR find of a number of prehistoric monuments. You have 5 Cursus monuments in the Wicklow area. I don't know what he's actually saying there. You have the LiDAR finder of a number of prehistoric monuments. You have 5 Cursus monuments in the Wicklow area. Oh, Christ, don't do Cursus monuments. 5 Cursus monuments in the Wicklow area. How dare the Irish have 5 Cursus monuments in one area when there's only 20 across the whole of England? How dare they? 5 in one little area. Freaking Irish. We love the Irish, really. In the Wicklow area. Judith says, Judith goes, so we've done the Wicklow area. And Judith goes, are there any round towers in, so Wicklow, right, here we go. Are there any round towers in the area of some of the Hillforts? Not that I'm aware of. Very circular inner walls might have a similar use of or purpose. I think she was saying, is there a direct link with those long, tall towers that were used and built by sort of the religious order of France, from France, Ireland, from like the 400-500s, long, tall towers that you can find in Ireland along the coast, along the west coast usually. Very circular inner walls might have a similar use or purpose. So that's that there, the purpose of that. And Judith, there's vitrification at Castle Hill in Huddersfield. I think that was the one that I may have been looking at on screen, but I'm not sure. So right, and this point from Anna would be an interesting one. So we're going to talk about that in a minute, right? And my response. So very circular inner walls might have a similar use or purpose, i.e., are they the tall towers to do with these forts? And there's vitrification at Castle Hill in Huddersfield. So this thing about off topic, but do you think the breakup of the UK could happen on our lifetime? The problem is now with the breakup of the UK is that the argument for independence in Ireland, start again. The arguments for independence in Scotland has collapsed. It really has. It's just gone out the park. You know, the way the SNP has run the Assembly, the Scottish Parliament is diabolical. And obviously you see what's happened in Wales. It's a nightmare having a Senedd. Personally, I'm a passionate person who believes in the integrity and the independence of Cymru Wales, but I feel that the Welsh Parliament should be dissolved. It's doing nothing for the country. And at this moment, I think we should be thinking about a unified Britain rather than a Britain that's full of crap. That's my answer. Anyway, Anna, we're going to call it a day. I've got a really long day tomorrow, and I was not expecting to go to 10 o'clock. Not at all tonight. So I'm going to call it a day. Anna, don't forget to keep supporting us. And I'm just going to, you know, if anyone wants to buy me a coffee. So let's see if the buy me a coffee link still there. Buy me a coffee. Okay. I used to have this on my other computer where I used to just cut and paste. karl-james. There we go. If anyone wants to buy me a coffee, make a donation, then they can. So here we go. www.buymeacoffee. And thanks, Anna, for your support. Coffee.com. And I don't know why they don't put my bloody name in full on here, but there you can make a donation. I think we have a 50 to 50% chance of it happening the next 10, 20 years. I don't think there's a need. Neil Oliver, a fellow archaeologist, now a presenter, is of the opinion that a united Britain is far stronger than a Britain that's divided and now falling apart. And strangely enough, I believe what he's saying is correct. And maybe before we go, Anna, is look up if the as Judith said, look at these towers in Ireland, those tall towers, and finally try to get to the other one. Hang on. Look at those towers in Ireland, the tall ones, and look also finally, my friend Reese, Anna. I see you two people. The vitrified castle at Huddersfield, which I might actually look at now. Actually, Huddersfield. All right, we're going to call it a day. I'm going to say Nostachi. Thanks for everybody's support. If you want to put a donation there, really appreciate that. I'm going to go to Ireland next year, hopefully. So maybe I will be in person. So there you go. You can see very much more and see those and get up to Huddersfield and see Castle Hill in Huddersfield. And I'm out. I'm out of you. Diolch yn fawr i chi. Gwelwch chi eto yma o hyd.